want to almost mimic this experience that you have on social media or your online presence and take that into the real world. Social media, everyone's favorite topic. Now, it's no secret that social media has a negative and mostly negative effect on most of our lives, but yet for some reason we are inexplicably drawn to it. And YouTube is a type of social media, albeit it is not the same type of social media that a TikTok or more of a short form content platform such as Instagram is. However, it is still social media. And today I wanted to discuss the topic of why exactly social media degrades language, interpersonal relationships, and our general ability to accept ideas and communicate with people around us, namely the closest people around us. Now, I have a few theories about this, and there's been many videos done on the addictive properties of social media. Everything from how in Instagram to refresh your feed, you pull down the same way as you would in a casino, to the instant hits of dopamine you get from short clips. And I think all of those things are relevant and pertinent, but I have another idea that expands on the addictive nature of the platform and also goes into this tertiary reason for why we find social media so addictive. And that has to do with the ability to have full control over what we are looking at, hearing, and seeing. And I feel like this aspect of social media cannot be overstated, because never in the history of the world has a person been able to control the interactions, or I would call them pseudo interactions, that they have on a day-to-day basis. So let's say, for instance, 100 years ago, a person might interact with his coworkers at work, or their children, their family, the community. And so by the time that TV became a new thing, there were still so few TV channels and so few options in terms of what to watch, that everything was seen as this novelty, right? It was this new form of media, this very novel thing. So pretty much everybody saw the same movie. Everybody watched the same shows. There wasn't this massive amount of media to pick and choose from. And I want to contrast that with today. So today, if you find something displeasing or it doesn't align with your view, you can quote unquote change the channel. You can choose what you watch, listen, and see. And at first, this sounds like a really great thing, because each person, according to what they like or don't like, can choose to watch and listen to the things that interest them. But there's a drawback to this, and one that I don't think anyone really fully understood. And that is the fact that when you are in real life and you encounter something that is displeasing to you, you have this natural inclination to immediately replace it with something that you do like. You want to almost mimic this experience that you have on social media or your online presence and take that into the real world. And I think in the last probably 5-10 years, this idea of cancel culture, this phenomenon where all of a sudden, for some reason, college students especially, who are supposed to be the most freedom loving and open to new ideas segment of the population, they began to protest that a speaker that they disagreed with would come on their campus and share ideas. Now that's really strange, and there's been many people who have discussed this topic, but I want to approach it from the standpoint of it's not even so much of a social phenomenon. Of course, it's manifested in those instances where on college campuses, students are protesting a specific person, but I would argue that in their interpersonal relationships, most of those people will be unable to have a conversation, even with a person that they think of as close, possibly a boyfriend or a girlfriend, if they begin to espouse ideas that are foreign to them, or that appear to be dangerous to them, or that appear to challenge their worldview. They will be unable to actually have a conversation with that person. And I want you to just think about how absolutely destructive and corrosive that mentality can be to an actual community of people. In the Bible, it says, in the beginning, there was the Word. And that's always been a cryptic phrase. In the beginning, there was the Word. What does that mean? Well, in my opinion, and I'm not a theologian, but I think there is a specific importance placed on language. Language, the Word was God. Language is what separates us from the animals. It's our ability to express complex emotional ideas, complex thematical ideas, metaphors, analogies through the use of language. And when that begins to degrade, it begins to degrade the entire social fabric on which us as people live together and in union with God. Now, if you're of the evolutionary mindset and you believe that language was something that was evolved, which I do not, and I'm not going to go into that into this video, I believe language at its core is the most powerful thing that we as humans have. Yes, we have physical touch, and today we have this overstimulation of visual input, and we have this almost pseudo reality, because within the format of video, as I'm doing right now, obviously I have language, but I have the ability to edit this video. I can edit out the dead spots in it. And when you think of social media, when you think about what is viral, what is trending, it's basically life on speed. It's all the boring parts of life edited out to make it maximally entertaining and addictive. When you choose basically between, the boring life that is regular life that plays at 1x speed, or you can watch the condensed version of pseudo life and, superimpose yourself into other people's lives through the form of just voyeurism, basically. What you have is this deadly combination that basically it becomes far more inconvenient and uncomfortable to talk and to discuss and to debate, ideas, philosophies, different points of view with the people closest around you when you can sit back, not say a word, and passively consume. You know, maybe you're one of the small percentage of people who does create the content. But still, even if you are a creator, you still have the option of sitting back and just consuming what you want to consume. And so within that form of communication, right? Because someone is still communicating with you, but it's this passive communication where you, as the recipient, you're receiving, right? You're receiving all this knowledge, and you don't really have to respond back to it. It doesn't, maybe sometimes it challenges you if you actually seek out, you know, content that challenges you. But by and large, you basically get to just consume what you want. And so it's no wonder why people, when they are presented with having to listen to someone that they may not agree with, it becomes very difficult to them. And it's always been this puzzling thing. You know, I'm one of those people that, you know, I consume videos myself. I consume social media. I watch YouTube. But I like to watch those videos where, you know, they question people on, you know, can you explain your reasoning as to why you don't want this person speaking on campus? And most of the time, I'm just stunned that these people have no idea how to answer. Or if they do, they answer in a series of cliches or just basically parroted statements. You know, statements that don't really contain anything, like, he's a fascist. Well, you know, what does that mean? So now just think, if a person like that has a close interpersonal relationship, how are they going to be communicating with their boyfriend, with their husband, you know, or if it's a guy, with his wife, with his girlfriend? What do you think that communication is going to look like? Well, I can tell you what it's going to look like. It's going to look like, if you say the wrong thing, then I'm going to leave because you think the wrong way, and you can't be talked to because I'm above talking about this because you're so wrong that it's just, I inherently know that you're wrong. And that is the attitude of today's society. When we see this rift, you know, we see a rift between political parties, factions. We see a rift between the sexes. We see a rift between the generations. The thing that is fueling the rift is, it's the ability to actually use language. You know, one more thing I want to touch on with social media is the absolute degradation of language and this kind of archaic form of pictographs that we know as emojis. And it was funny because when emojis first came out, like, yeah, everybody thought they were cute, but I always had this unsettling feeling about them. Like we were basically trading rich words for, you know, cheap stickers. You know, when I was teaching my daughter to read, we used to read these picture books. And, you know, some of them would have the big, like, smiley faces, like, Greg is mad. And it shows him, like, you know, doing a frown. Greg is happy, smiling. And I feel like we've gone back to the language of these little picture books. It's almost like we're using, you know, 2 to 4 year old language, you know, communicating with adults. How many people do you know write in, you know, full, complete grammatical sentences in text? Not that many. And so there's this degradation at the core of language, replacing it with little pictographs. Then we go further, and now you don't send like a little pictograph. There's memes, and so you don't have to say anything. There is no original thought. There is no original expression of how you feel about something. You can communicate through emojis and through memes. And then worse, people don't call each other anymore. They communicate exclusively through text. And it's just, on the inside, to me, it feels like this complete degradation of language. I'm a millennial. I was born in 1986. So when I was going to school, I still remember the days before cell phones, before screens completely took over. And I remember even when I was a kid, like I used to love playing video games. And I remember in junior high, I was playing this one video game, Rain Man, and what was it? Gran Turismo. Yeah, that's what it was. I used to play those after school every day, and I remember just playing just hours and hours. And then one day I remember thinking, like, this is such a waste of time. Like, video games, I could just see, I don't know, like hours and hours of my time going into this thing, and it's like, what am I doing? And at that point, I remember just like, I stopped playing video games kind of for good, and I didn't go back. And yeah, I'm sure some people are going to get, butthurt that I'm talking bad about video games, but it's the same type of thing. Okay, some people might be using social media for good. I can claim that, yes, I watch, informative videos, but then there's this whole other swath of time I waste on it that am I really being productive by watching that? Did I even gather any kind of information? There's also too this idea that you're actually absorbing the information that you watch. And if you really think back, like, how many hours of videos have you watched, and what can you extract right now from those hours and hours of videos? Like, what did you actually retain from that? My guess would be very little, unless you were doing very active listening, possibly taking notes, and you rewatched it 2 to 3 times because you were actually interested in learning that subject. I would say that's the only type of video consumption that is truly 100% productive, that actually mimics the act of learning. But when you're consuming passively as you're doing something else, like, you can't put that into the same category as if you were, sitting in a college level class taking notes and fully focused on the subject. Then you reviewed the notes and you made sure that you could paraphrase them. I think if you actually are interested in learning from a video, that's what you have to do. You have to watch it, multiple times, and then you have to try to actually paraphrase it yourself. See if you can extract and recall, explain the information that you actually just heard. Many people, I think, already know that social media is this corrosive element in our society. But I wanted to talk about specifically why it's corrosive. And maybe you don't quit cold turkey, but if you understand and if you start to practice and actually appreciate language, read some classical literature. Several weeks ago, I was reading letters that soldiers were writing from the front during the Civil War. And it's absolutely shocking the level of vocabulary an average 18-year-old to, let's say, 25-year-old, who by no means were they the most educated people at that time. And they would write absolutely eloquent letters that were grammatically correct, full of adjectives and vivid descriptions. Just contrast that now to, the comments section. Yeah, there's some good comments depending on what videos you're watching, but by and large, just look at the level of communication that we find acceptable today. We find it acceptable to basically write in complete broken English with slang, pictographs that are made for kids, and made up words. And then furthermore, we're making up more new words. Like every month, there's some new trending phrase or word to describe something that's actually been around for forever. It's not describing anything new. Like quiet quitting. That's just called being apathetic. There's already a word for that. It's not a new phenomenon. You're apathetic. And it's just hilarious how modern culture thinks we're so clever. Or, you know, if you take, for example, the DSM, the psychological holy grail, you know, there's a oppositional defiant disorder. That's just a kid who's not behaved. Like, that is not a new thing. That is a kid who has bad parenting, who doesn't behave himself, who doesn't have the correct form of structure so that he can organize his behavior and control it. It is not a new disorder by any means. And this stuff gets published. You know, that's why today's society is such a clown world, because there's experts that will sit up there, you know, with their collared shirt and their tie, and they're going to talk about, you know, all these oppositional defiant disorder, or you know, whatever it is, new disorder that they've made up, or these new terminologies. And it's just complete, it's this degradation of language. And then it's also this, just this total and complete confusion of language, manipulation of language for a political end. So another point to make about social media, or just media consumption and differences between the sexes, is if you look at the accounts that have these millions of followers, and now there's actually AI versions of women who have, I think they have millions of followers too. But basically for women, it's like, why do they have social media accounts? What is the driving, you know, desire? You know, and you can say fame, but really it's this idea of validation, you know, come-uppies, you know, comments, likes, all this, come-uppies. And what is this? So for a woman, if she has tons and tons of social validation, that can replace, you know, one relationship. You know, if you're getting thousands of likes, if you're getting money, if you're getting, you know, whatever it is from these social media platforms, you don't really need one person. You get a little bit from each person, and then you don't have to put yourself out there. You can just put out the digital representation of yourself, and then you get the likes, you get all the social validation. And for women too, women are much more encouraging and basically, tribal. Women are much more encouraging of other women. They band much closer. For men, it's not really like that. You don't hear a bunch of the, you know, it's a different dynamic with men. So where do men go? You know, men aren't, yes, there's men that gather, you know, millions of followers, but by and large, the majority of accounts are women. And the majority of people leaving comments, you know, as the betas, the simps, they're just these thirsty men who are on these pages leaving comments, leaving emojis, leaving likes. It's just crazy. And then where else are those men? Well, yeah, maybe some of those people answer back, but those men, then they go to, you know, CoomTube, and they spend their time on there, because there they don't have to put any effort. They don't have to put themselves out there. They don't have to do anything. They don't have to communicate. They can just, watch CoomTube, leave comments, and you have this dystopian society where there's this, degradation of language. You have social validation for women that is on a scale that has, never been seen. So you can be validated from people from all over the world. Whereas before, if you were a girl living in, a small to mid-sized city, like how many compliments are you really going to get on a day-to-day basis? Well, probably not that many. But now you're basically training yourself to get this massive amount of social validation from people that don't know you. Maybe there's a percentage of them that actually personally know you, but by and large, these people with 2 million followers, it's like they don't know 2 million people. They don't have 2 million friends. They're getting social validation from a ton of people that don't know them at all. And so there's this strange dynamic that begins to develop where, the men are thirsty, and the women understand that men are thirsty, and they set out, these thirst traps. And again, I'm not talking about all women here. There's some women that lead, blogs about something other than their butt and their body. Those are not the women I'm talking about. I'm talking about, exactly the accounts I'm talking about. The ones that are just, every other picture is, a shot of someone's behind and, a wet t-shirt or something like that. And there's all these people just on there, and you don't even know what this person does. They're just collecting come-uppies for that. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about, people that lead actual blogs about, a specific topic. So you have this just deadly combination of the destruction of language, the degradation of language, the inability for people to just encounter an idea that they don't like, or sit through it, listen to it fully, and then come up with a logical, calm, coherent response, or say that you don't have a response. There's certain things, there's certain conversations I've had where someone's like, how do you feel about this? And it's like, well, I don't really know, because I'm not familiar enough with the topic to have a strong enough opinion on it. I feel like that should be a regular answer for people. But then people feel kind of pigeonholed into this. If they don't know anything about a topic, they're just going to parrot, whatever their little, team has been saying. So they might not know anything about a topic. For instance, like China. I guarantee you 99% of Americans have absolutely no idea about what China is, what goes on over there. All they know is these small little soundbite clips of people talking about it, and they think they understand something about it. They don't know anything about it. It's like, I would not consider myself as knowing much about China, and I've actually, tried to find out certain things about it. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm this like China expert. The confidence which they speak about certain topics about which they know nothing about is mind-blowing. Never in history has it been like that. So with that, have a good day, and I'll see you on the next one.